Because it is a new year, I got a couple of new private groups that are starting. There's Leadership Transformation with Laurel. That's a private Facebook group. And I'll be posting these on my pages. I think I did already yesterday, but I'll go back and look. And then there is Career Transformation with Laurel that is opening up. That's a private group as well. And we'll be going in and talking about some of the things we talk about on the show. But I'll be going live in those groups every week. So for Q&A or for connection or, answers, that kind of stuff. So I'll be going there. The leadership one, we'll also be talking about a lot of HR stuff there. So that's one of the reasons that group is still private, because I want people to be able to ask questions freely. That is not a guarantee of protection, so I really ask people not to share confidential information because I can't guarantee that won't get out somewhere because it is a social media platform. But we'll be talking more about HR stuff in the leadership one. And then the career one is just that, career transformation. So we'll be talking about that more later. So stay tuned for those groups. I have a summit that is coming up, a career transformation summit. That summit will be the end of February. I think it's the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. I'll talk to you guys about that. It'll be 3 days. And then I'm starting some group sessions. So out of that will be a 3-month group career session. I'll be doing 4 of those a year. So there'll be 4 different cohorts. So if that's something of interest to you, then join the summit. Get on my website, get on my mailing list, all that kind of stuff, so you'll know early. So, with all of that, new year, not going to take a whole lot of time for PSAs right now, although there'll be some more as we come up this year, I'm sure. I want to talk about this whole idea of hustle and grind. And it came about out of a number of things. So, everybody picks their words for the year. What is their word going to be for the year? And I had originally said I was going to continue my word to be clarity, right? Clarity, compassion, and conviction. Those are my words for 2020. And they were so needed. They were so needed, especially the compassion word. And I said, well, I'll continue that because in 2021, it's not like the world is just going to open up immediately, clearly, because it is the 4th and it did not do that. There's still some things that we're going to need to be compassionate about, and we're going to have compassion for each other, and we need to be clear on some things, and we need to be convicted about some things. And so, those words are still important. But in really thinking about how I wanted things to occur and how I wanted things to happen, and in planning, because proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Remember that? Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Thinking about strategy, what's going to happen this year? What do I want to happen this year? What that's going to look like? What the numbers are going to look like? How am I going to serve? And a bunch of other stuff that was going on that just had my mind just locked and not focused and, all that kind of stuff that happens, right? In the stillness, I said, you know what? Here is something that has occurred. And y'all forgive that phone. Here's something that has occurred, and I'm going to get still. And I'm going to really focus, and I'm going to get quiet, and I'm just going to take a minute. I'm going to practice the pause. Remember, we talked about that. I'm going to practice the pause. And in that pause, there were a couple of things that happened. Many things happened. But the word that came up was surrender. Surrender. And I kept hearing that, surrender. Now, for those of you who know me, and those of you who've been following me, surrender is not a word I use very often. Because surrender is like give up. Don't fight. Don't. And I got control issues, y'all. I just do. And so surrender is a challenge word. But as I sat with that, I practiced the pause. I said, in this moment, when we are still, that's when we hear what we're supposed to hear, if we are willing to listen, right? And I've said before, good morning, Nancy. I've said before, God's got to burn a bush for me. I don't read signs real well, so he's got to hit me over the head. And I've also told people before, when you are praying for something, believing for something, whether that's God, whether that's, if you're Jewish, if you're practicing Buddhism, whatever your thing is, the universe, it is important to listen for the answer and not for the answer that you're getting, not the answer you want to hear, right? And so as I sat with that and said surrender, okay, but what does that mean? And when I think deeply about surrender, it's about staying in flow. It's about surrendering to the process and also surrendering to the outcomes, because I can't control everything. That's just not real. It's just not real. All I can control is my effort, and I can control my reaction to the outcomes. And that control of effort is what led to, we're going to be talking about hustle and grinding. hustling and grinding this month. Because as I listened to that and thought about that, and I posted this week a post that I did last year, but it just made sense today, that said, we often have a lot of insecurity, but because we're comparing our behind the scenes to somebody else's highlight reel. And that's true, especially in social media. You know, I built my business to 6 figures in 2 seconds, right? And I got 4 million followers in 5 days, you know, just madness. And if you sit and pause, you know that's not true. But then we compare ourselves. It's like comparison culture. And so the other thing that happens is people talk about hustling. You got to hustle. You got to make sure you're hustling. Here's my side hustle. Well, here's the reality about hustling. If you think about just the word hustle, I'm going to talk about hustle and grinding, but today I really want to focus on hustle. And the podcast is going to talk about this week too. The definition, one of the definitions of hustle is to forcibly like move someone in a certain direction, right? So if you think about movies or things like that, you know, they hustle somebody to a car out of danger. And because I've had, you know, Red and Red 2 on like constant rotation, there's a scene where they're like hustling the VP into a limo, right? So you hustle people into a room or out of a room or into a meeting or something. It's an act you do to someone. The other definition around hustle is con. He's a hustler, right? We heard about that. You see a lot of those in old movies, right? It's a con or a game. But, like for word nerds like me, over time, hustle has become, you know, not the hustle, the dance, although, you know, I love to dance, I love music. But it's also become side hustle. You know, it defines work. It defines how you move. If you think about athletic venues, they're always talking about hustle up, hustle up, hustle up. And that means come together, right? Or, you know, you're not hustling, means run faster, move faster, be more agile. And in this area of social media, or era of social media, as I've been watching people, especially when you look at other entrepreneurs, when you're building a business, or if you're in a career and you're looking at moving up in a career, you hear hustle a lot. And you got to be the hardest hustler in the room. You got to be the best hustler in the room. You got to move better. You got to move faster. If you're not hustling, it's not going to happen. Here's the problem with that. That ties your hustle to your outcome directly, like a one-on-one sync. If you're not hustling, nothing happens. If you don't hustle right, nothing happens. If you don't hustle enough, nothing happens. But here's the reality. Hustle, or how hard you work, is only one component of the outcomes you achieve. One. And so we put pressure on ourselves to say, oh, I didn't get what I wanted, so I didn't work hard enough. It didn't happen the way I wanted because I didn't show up when I was supposed to. And it manifests itself, especially for those of us who have got control issues, as, oh my gosh, I don't understand. You know, I've talked about this before on the show. You know, 80-hour weeks, driving 100 miles a day, there before everybody else, leaving after. I mean, that was just my world for almost 30 years. And I'm not talking about early career. Because in early career, there is, we talk in corporate, they talk about paying dues, right? Or the daily grind. And there is a certain amount of additional effort that's put in when you're early in your career, or you're really trying to move things forward, because you're learning, you're growing, you're making contacts. Or even from a hierarchy perspective, you know, a lot of the more detailed oriented stuff is when you are first starting, because that's how you learn. And then as you move up, you're in more kind of the decision making or guiding or directing. So the effort, the detail, in the data effort tends to happen earlier in the career, or quote unquote lower in the organization. And so those times when you're, you know, pulling an all-nighter, especially in professional services, right, around tax season, because that's coming up, pulling all-nighters, working, you know, 80-hour weeks, all this kind of stuff very early. As leaders, we have to be careful about what we're talking about when we say hustle and grind, and the daily grind, right, and how we're digging in and paying our dues. Yes, there is additional effort in the beginning, and there is stuff you need to learn, because none of us knows everything. But especially when you're starting early, there's a lot of stuff you need to learn, either about the job that you're doing, or about the organization you're in, or about the industry that you're in, things like that. And we learn by doing. And if all we're thinking about is effort, that's where you get issues in organizations where you got clock watchers. People assume if you're the first one there and the last one going, then you must be working harder, you must be better, you must be performing better. Whereas the person who is more efficient and they're actually getting their stuff done in 8 hours may be the better performer because they plan better or they're more efficient with every hour or every minute that they have. Versus the person who's there early and stays late and they're just sitting at their desk watching Facebook or something else during the day. But because they're working for someone who's watching the clock, it appears that they're hustling harder, they're working harder. And that may not be the case, right? And that's why I'm saying there's not necessarily a one-on-one correlation to effort and outcome. There is not necessarily a one-on-one correlation to effort and outcome. There is an impact of effort on outcome, but it is not the only thing that drives your outcomes. What's important is as you're thinking about where you want to go, it's proper prior planning prevents poor performance. We talked a lot about strategy. What is it that you want? Why do you want it? What are you willing to do to get it? How do you make a plan so you can stay in flow? That's a hard one for me, right? Stay in flow, be flexible, be aware so that if something changes, either internal or external to what you're trying to do, you can maneuver in a way that still gets you to the outcome that you want, but maybe a different effort than you initially thought. And it's important to think about that and not just think about hustle, hustle, hustle. Because you can be hustling for the wrong thing. You can be spending all of your effort and it's not even close to what you need to be doing to get the outcome you want. Because you haven't spent the time to really think about where you're going or what you're doing and why. Because that's the key piece of ensuring it all works together. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What is the impact of what I'm doing on the outcome that I want? And yes, we can't sit back and just say, please, because I'm a good person, just make this happen. I guess some people can do that. People who truly believe in manifestation at even deeper levels think you just think it and it happens. I'm a believer in you think it, you believe it, and then you act towards it, right? Your actions demonstrate you really are believing in that and you are willing to do the work to get it, right? But that idea of just hustling until you drive yourself crazy is where we end up having some issues with burnout. It is the first step to burnout. I'm not working hard enough. I didn't show up enough. I wasn't the hardest working person in the room. And especially communities of color. Because we've been brought up, work harder, run faster, be smarter, do more, all this madness. And women as well. You got to be smarter. You got to show up earlier. You got to work hard. All of these things, if you are an other, has been something we've all been groomed to do. And then if we still don't get the outcomes, then it becomes a commentary on our effort because other people will tell us we didn't work hard enough. Well, if it didn't happen, you didn't work hard enough. You could have worked harder. If you didn't win that medal, you should have trained harder. The other person just trained harder than you. Had nothing to do with actual capability or ability. Had nothing to do with opportunity or exposure or experience or timing or health or any of that stuff. Others will tell you it's just you didn't work hard enough. You didn't want it bad enough. You didn't plan well enough. I mean, all these kind of things, but mostly you didn't work hard enough. You didn't want it bad enough to work hard enough. You didn't sacrifice enough to get what you said you wanted. So that hustle becomes a weapon. That hustle becomes a component of us being really, really hard on ourselves and not being able to think broader about what we're really trying to do and why. And I'm not talking about, having your side hustle, because that's actually a good thing. When people talk about, hey, I'm doing my side hustle. I have my job and I love or hate my job. That's kind of inconsequential. But I love this thing. And so while I'm doing this job, I'm going to spend this extra time doing this side hustle. Because maybe the side hustle actually becomes my full-time job if I can support it. Or it can support me. And that's a good thing. Then you're having your current job be the investment in your side hustle. That's beautiful. And
go back over that. Say that again.
I said if you're see, I can never remember what I said because I'm in
your
the zone,
current
man.
job being your investment to your side.
Yes. Lisa Nichols says that.
Okay.
When you got something you really want to do, you think about your current job as being your investor in your dream. And I had never thought about that, right? So those of you who are working full time and doing a side hustle, that's the thing they think about. Just think about that job, that current job, as the investment in your real dream. And here's what I loved about Lisa Nichols saying that. You all know I'm all about perspective. All about perspective. And if you are in a role that you hate, you're in a job that you hate, or not that you even hate it, it just doesn't fulfill you, right? It doesn't get your juices flowing. It doesn't do any of that, but there's something else that does. By thinking about that job that you're doing that's giving you a paycheck, that's paying the bills or what have you, by putting that in the perspective of your investor, you have much less energy tied up in how that one feels because you've changed the purpose. Your perspective on that job that you're doing every day where you're getting a paycheck it's an investment in the thing you really want to do. So you don't get as caught up in some of the drama because it doesn't matter. You're going to continue to do it. Now, I'm not saying you overlook if you're being mistreated and that kind of stuff. I'm just saying the general kind of drudgery isn't as impactful because you put it in the right perspective. This job is enabling me to do what I want to do for real. Mm-hmm. It's giving me an investment in the things that I really want to do. It's helping me with my side hustle, right? And so, hey, Sweet Pea, thank you. It's giving me a perspective on what I really want to do. And so I no longer am going into this job and thinking, oh my God, it's Sunday, I got to go in tomorrow. And I've been there. Didn't sleep on a Sunday night for 5 years, y'all. I do not recommend that. But because we're able to put that in perspective, we are no longer caught up in, I hate it, I don't want it, I hate my boss, I hate the work, I hate the whatever I hate. We're no longer caught up in that stuff because we've put the current thing that we're doing in perspective. Now, here's the other piece of that, though. It is important to understand, again, talking about hustle and not allowing that word hustle and the pressure to hustle to actually unintentionally put us into this, overwork and burnout, is if you are doing something else full time and you're doing a side hustle, you still need to be mindful of your energy and your time. You still need to be mindful of what you mean. You still need to be mindful, am I working smarter or am I working harder? And there are times when the work is just hard and there's just drudgery, there's stuff that we hate to do. I'm doing some of that for year-end stuff, taxes and all that kind of madness. All the stuff we hate to do because it's not in the actual passion work. So there's stuff that we always have to do, right? Even if you're hustling, there's stuff that you have to do just to exist as adults, right? Adulting is not fun or easy, but it's necessary. And so when you're thinking about this side hustle in particular, make sure you're keeping that in perspective as well, because you don't want to get to a point where the thing that you're really passionate about and you really want to spend your energy on is something that you love to do. That also becomes drudgery because you haven't put it in the right perspective. Because at the end of the day, if your current job is your investor in your passion, then you do have to make sure you're spending the right amount of time and effort to ensure that you are doing that job to the best of your ability. You are performing well, and you are meeting expectations at a minimum, that you're meeting expectations. Because if that's your investor, you need to keep that investment until you're ready to be done with that investment. You want to put yourself in a position where you're making the decision, not them, as to when you will or will not continue that position. But that kind of hustle, that side hustle, that purposeful move into purpose or passion, that's a kind of hustle that drives you, right? That's a kind of hustle that supports you and promotes you. The kind of hustle we need to be mindful of is that hustle that gets us down, that hustle that makes us tired, that hustle that says, okay, my hustle is my outcome, and my outcome isn't what I wanted, so I didn't work hard enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not energetic enough, I'm not. I can't. I won't. It isn't. All that head trash. That's what we've got to be mindful of. Because that kind of hustle is not productive and forward-moving hustle. That is judgmental hustle. And that's why you have to be careful about what you watch and what you believe. especially on social media. And I joined Clubhouse. I kept seeing this Clubhouse. You know, and I didn't know what it was. I'm telling you what, I'm loving it so far. So hopefully it doesn't change. And I'm on at Laurel K. Rutledge on Clubhouse. So if any of you guys are on there, you can follow me. I haven't done a room yet. I still got to do my bio, but you know, I'm just figuring out even how it works. But
so do you have to invite somebody? Or
I think someone signs up, but then they have to be invited to be admitted or something. Okay. So I had only one invitation. I don't know how you get more invitations. I'm still learning. Yeah. But they have some amazing rooms and amazing conversations. And so I was in this one room last night or night before, and they were talking about corporate and talking about the grind and talking about hustle and talking about all this stuff. And it again, because I was still, and I heard that word surrender, be in flow. Surrender to what you're being told. Surrender to the idea and the process. I kept hearing hustle, hustle, hustle. Hard work. I'm speaking truth to power. I'm going to be powerful. I'm just going to keep working. Well, we've talked about the power of the word power and the danger of the word power, right? We talked about that. There is power in hustle because you are taking your energy and you're moving it towards something you really want and where you really want to be. But there's danger in the power of a hustle because if you're not focused on why you're hustling and the purpose of the hustle becomes drudgery. That's what I said a minute ago, right? The hustle becomes a problem. It becomes a pain point. It becomes a place not only that other people judge you, but you allow yourself to be judged and you begin to judge yourself. When the reality is our outcomes are first determined by our planning and our strategy. What did we want to do? How do we prepare ourselves? Just like they say, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I think Oprah said that. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Our outcomes are absolutely connected to our hustle, but they are also dependent upon how we planned and how we prepared to hustle. Are we working smarter or are we just working harder? Because as my friend Tisa said, she said an old boss of hers said, you can never outwork the work. There's always going to be more work to do. There's always going to be more work to do. But if you surrender to the process, if you stay in flow, if you keep your eye and your mind on why you're doing what you're doing, then you can pivot when necessary. You can have the energy that you need when you need it, but you can also take the time to pause and to rest because you understand the general outcome depends on your being able to be consistent. You're being able to show up all the time. You're being able to really be invested. And if you are not taking care of you, your hustle is going to be greatly compromised. As is your planning and your effort and your excitement and your energy and all that kind of stuff, right? So hustling is not necessarily all bad, but hustling the way we've talked about it and the way we've now started putting it forward becomes something with which we judge people and with which we judge ourselves. That we got to hustle harder, we got to move faster. It's very much a culture, an American culture. So those of you listening internationally, and it's not just American, but it tends to be inherently us, that whole bootstrap. Work harder, right? Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you can make it happen. That is so us. That is so us. And yet, when you look at mental illness, when you look at burnout, when you look at stress, and stress is a killer, when you look at stress, often, especially those who are working for someone else, and even entrepreneurs as well, that is tied to the pressure we put on ourselves to measure up to some other circumstance or some other outcome. Measuring up to someone else's standard. Or even trying to measure up to our own that we've set unreasonably because we're watching everybody else. And that doesn't mean you can't have aspirations. You should aspire to be whatever and whoever and wherever you want to be. Absolutely. And then you take the time to understand what it means to get that. Whether or not it's reasonable, whether or not you have the skills or are willing to get the skills or have the capability to develop the skills, to do, or the knowledge, or the what have you, to do whatever it is you aspire to do. All of this stuff is circular and broad. We have a tendency to think it's just one thing, which is part of our issue, right? Our attention spans are really short. Our stick-to-itiveness is really short. We want instant gratification. That's why so many people who are like, buy my thing because I can get you there in 2 days, are selling so well, because everybody wants the immediate attention. It takes time. And it's about timing. If you've not read the book Outliers, you should, Malcolm Gladwell. Because some things are about timing.
Say it again.
Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. I love that book. That's one of the things that got me to be a huge Malcolm Gladwell fan. Because one of the things he talks about from a timing perspective is, and it relates to hustle as well, you can work as hard as you want to work. You can outwork everyone in the room, but sometimes it's also about timing and about positioning and about where you are. He relates it a lot to like baseball. He talks about Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, right? And the timing, Microsoft and Apple. Would they be who they are? Could they have developed what they developed had they been born in a different time, under different circumstances? Right? So some of it is about timing. Those people now who have amazing YouTube channels and have been able to build really big things, some of those were the first adopters. When you think about stock markets, you think about people who've gotten wealthy buying stock. That's why people try to follow people who are really good at predicting the ones that are going to move the fastest. Early adopters often are the ones that reap the biggest rewards. They're also the ones willing to take the biggest risks. And that taking bigger risks doesn't mean they're hustling harder. It means they're bigger risk takers. Those two are not necessarily connected. They may be, but they don't have to be. And so if you look at how we are, good morning, California, how we are moving through this next phase, and how people now, especially a lot of people after 2020 and going into 2021, what do I want to do? Now that I've gone through all of this, what's really important to me? What do I want to spend my time doing? Sometimes people are making the decision, you know what? I'm going to stick with this job. I don't love it. But I know it, and it affords me the ability to do what I do love. And so I'm going to stick here because I can do it well. I'm going to be able to be engaged, and it's going to give me the freedom to do the other things I want to do, because it doesn't make that much pressure for me. Right? I know it so well that it's not so much pressure. That's the decision some people are making. Some people are saying, you know what? If not now, when? It is time to make a change. And they are needing to invest in understanding what change they want to make and why, and what they're willing to do to get that change. And that's not easy. That takes effort, and it takes determination, and it takes a willingness to dig deeper and to pause and to listen. And to be honest with ourselves about how hard we want to hustle. To surrender to the outcomes. To surrender to the journey. Right? To ensure we can stay in flow, because everything is a flow. That's what I love when I heard from the HR lead at Marathon. This was a few years ago. They stopped talking about career path and started talking about career flow. And I love that idea, because it gives you freedom to move around. Not only just move up, you can move sideways, you can move down, you can move across, you can move over, you can move up. But flow gives you freedom to move and learn a whole bunch of different things. It's not just about up. It's not just a path. It's not just static. And by the way, when you're in flow, the kind of information you get, the kind of experience you get, the kind of data you gather, because remember, facts plus the action that gives you experience equals wisdom. The kind of wisdom you develop by being in flow is phenomenal, because you've allowed yourself and you've surrendered to the journey, and you've allowed yourself to hustle differently. Your hustle is now about learning. Your hustle is now about being in flow. Your hustle now is about aligning your energy with what you're trying to do and what makes your soul sing. Jerry, were you about to say something?
I gotta say something because
Yeah.
you're so confirming something. When you say you hustle differently, and I go to these parks, and since the pandemic, I'm taking a tour of Houston,
Yeah.
and going to different parks, and it would look to the untrained eye, she don't never work. But I said, trust me, I'm grinding, but my grind is different.
Yes.
To the creative, nature is my office to me.
Yes.
And so it gives me creativity when I'm outside doing what I enjoy doing. And so many things have been done, so many deals have been made, just being at one with creativity.
Right.
Another thing about hustle, when you're in your flow, you don't have to do it so hard and so much.
Right.
People see you in your flow. Just that quick, you said Malcolm Gladwell. I wrote it down. And I'm like, but you know her, and she's suggesting a book, and I heard I went to Amazon and got it.
See?
But a while back, I would, people will say, you want to read this? And you're like, yeah, I get that, I get that. But when a person is in their flow, you can go along with what they say or endorse because you trust their flow.
Exactly. I love that. And that's what's so important, and why I wanted to talk about this whole fallacy of hustle and grind. Again, I am not saying you don't have to work hard. I'm not saying that there's not going to be effort to get what you want. Because there is effort in getting what we want. It is work to get where you want to be. I mean, every once in a while something amazing happens and somebody wins a lottery, right? But for the most part, for most people, you got to work for what you want. The idea, though, is the joy and the beauty and the learning and the success is not in the hustle. The success is when the hustle is aligned with the purpose and the strategy to get you to an outcome that you want. That's the beauty. That's the flow. That's the flow. But we get so caught up exactly. Hard work doesn't feel like hard work when you're in your flow. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Sweet Pea. It does not feel like hard work when you're in your flow. And I've said this before too. When you're waking up every day and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this again. When you're not sleeping on a Sunday for 5 years. Something is not aligned. You are not in flow. Something is not right. And if you surrender to the process and surrender to the flow and it still feels right, it's time for you to make a change. And to have the courage to say, this isn't working. And it's okay for it not to be working. What's not okay is for me to just sit in this pain. Not forever. Sometimes we're so overwhelmed that we have to sit in the pain until we get ourselves together, right? And I totally acknowledge that. And as I've said before, I'm a believer in therapy. I'm a believer in reaching out and getting some help. So if you find yourself sitting in that pain for too long, please reach out. Because there are options. You don't have to stay in pain. And realize that pain and that misalignment, that gut that says something's not right, that constant fatigue, that constant conflict, something is not aligned. And you owe it to yourself to figure out what that is. Because we only get this one life, y'all. We only get to go around one time. And if you're going to make a whole lot of effort, you may as well be making effort towards something that means something to you. And again, that doesn't mean it's all easy. We all got stuff we don't want to do. We all got stuff we don't want to do, even when we're pursuing our passion. Right? I love what I'm doing. But that social media stuff makes me crazy. But it's a necessary part of what I'm doing. Making sure I'm disciplined weekly to go back and look at the numbers and make sure I'm paying attention and make sure I'm doing my quarterly stuff for the business, all the infrastructure stuff. That doesn't necessarily make me crazy because I'm data driven and I'm numbers driven, but it is not the fun stuff. And everything doesn't have to be fun, but it doesn't have to be drudgery if you are connecting it in flow to your purpose and why you're doing it in the first place. But that's about proper prior planning prevents poor performance. What are you trying to do? Where are you trying to go? Why are you trying to do it? And what are you willing to do to get there? And if you know the answers to all that, when you are doing something that's drudgery or when something doesn't feel right, you can pause and determine, does it not feel right because it's time to pivot or move? Or does it not feel right because it's really not right and I need to do something different? Or does it not feel right because I just don't want to do it and I just need to get over that and keep it moving? Or anything in between, right? But if you've done the proper planning and you've gotten really focused and really clear on what you want and why, you are so much better able to pause and understand when something doesn't feel right and do it with much more clarity and a much more calm mind and calm spirit, because you at least have a direction. It's when we move from a foundation that's not solid that we get all crazy, that we feel like we don't know where we're going or what we're doing and why, because we haven't spent the time initially to do the work we need to do to make sure things are moving the way we need to move and to do the work that we really want to do, right? That's what's critical. It's critical to understand, yes, we got to work hard, and yes, there's hustle, but it's not about the hustle. It's about the outcome. It's not about the hustle. So when you see all of these memes about working harder, yeah, we got to work hard, but you don't have to work yourself into the ground. You know, as I said a long time ago, and I don't remember where I heard this, probably some old person, because they have such amazing wisdom, that said, you know, what do you want on your tombstone? What do you want your epitaph to say? She worked real hard. I mean, so she worked real hard and now she's dead, right? No. I wanted to say, you know, she served. She lived well. She had fun. She impacted lives positively. Oh, and yeah, by the way, she was a hard worker. You know, if there's nothing that has come out of this, one of the things that's come out of this is time is fleeting. You know, relationships are precious. Time is precious. Nothing is guaranteed, right? And we have choices and we have options. And we have the ability to do what we want to do in the manner we want to do it. We have choices. We're not free from the consequences of our choices, but we have choices. And you have a choice in how you hustle. You have a choice in how that gets in your head and what it means. You have a choice in deciding that, no, my outcome is not just based on my hustle. It's not that I didn't work hard enough. It's not that I wasn't good enough. Although there may be times when you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, you dialed that in. You know, you weren't really serious about that. You know, we have to be honest with ourselves. But comparing our hustle to someone else's is where we get in trouble. Because everything you see is not real. That's why, you know, some of the people that you see more often, you see like a Chrissy Teigen. That's one of the reasons people love her, because she's so real. She's on, you know, Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else, but you see her with no makeup. You see her talking about she and John talking about the tragedy they just had. You see real. You just don't see glammed up. And we've gotten so used to glam. And don't get me wrong, you know, it's fun to glam up. I had the best time doing my last photo shoot. I really did. And being all glammed up and dolled up, because that's not my normal MO. But it's glam. Right? Now, I'm still me under that. It's just dressing. But I don't show up like that every day. It's too much work, number one. And I know me. That's just not how I'm going to show up. But I also know that spending that time to do that persona, that vision, that look, that identity is also a part of who I am. And there are times when I will show up like that, because showing up like that also has a way of impacting immediate credibility. As my friend Bobby says, you dress for the day you want. You dress for the day you want. You dress for the job you want. You act in a manner that is indicative of where you want to be. And so your hustle should reflect what you want. And you have to give yourself grace and have some compassion. Because hustle ebbs and flows. Some days you are in the zone, and there is nothing that feels better. You know, as Anya said, there's nothing that feels better when you're doing work you love and you're in flow. Being in the zone is amazing. I mean, it's like when all cylinders are clicking, there's nothing better. And there's no worse feeling than when you are just not on your game. Nothing seems to go right. You can't seem to think. That is just horrendous. And it's fleeting. Don't sit in that moment. I've gotten to the place now, and maybe it's just age. I've gotten to the place now where when I feel that way, when things just aren't working, when they're not working, unless I truly have a commitment that I don't want to break or can't break for whatever reason, I take a pause. I'm like, you know what? I need to put this away and go do something else. I need to calm my brain and my spirit down so I can get back in flow. I've recognized that when my space is messy, that means my mind is messy. And so instead of beating myself up about having a clutter issue, I have turned that clutter into a tool. It is an early warning signal for me that I need to pause and figure out what's making me messy, address that, clean up my space, and then I'm cleaning up my mind and cleaning up my spirit and moving back into flow. So as you're evaluating and thinking about your hustle, what is it that keeps you in flow? And when you're out of flow, what is it that is taking you out of flow? Be aware. Because nobody knows you like you know you. Now, we may not want to acknowledge what we know about us, but the reality is nobody knows you like you know you. And if you don't think you know you, find somebody who knows you. Find some help and get to know you. Because really, the way you get to the outcomes that you want is to always show up as you. To always show up as you. Because there is no other you. And people may be doing some of the same work, but they don't do the same work the way you do it. And people who want you or need you are not going to want or need the other person who's doing the same work. There's such a thing as connection, right? There's such a thing as that symbiotic relationship. And so hustle for 2021, I am going to take the power back from hustle. I'm going to take my power back. And and my brain is, it's one of those brain moments. There's a way when you reclaim. That's it. I'm going to reclaim the word hustle. I am reclaiming the word hustle. I'm reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming the word hustle. Mm-hmm. The word hustle is no longer going to be a weapon for me. The word hustle is going to be a choice. And how I hustle, when I hustle, where I hustle, and with whom I hustle is going to be a choice that is aligned with my flow. And that's how I'm moving into 2021. And we're going to be talking about hustle and grind all month of January. Because you have to set yourself up in the beginning for what you want at the end. And it's a perfect time to do that. Because even though I think we tried, most of the time people are really trying to plan for the next year kind of at the end of the year. But these holidays this year, y'all, I think people were just trying to rest.
Yeah, I think so too.
They just needed a minute. So this January is a great time to really do that process now. What do I want? How do I want it? What am I going to reclaim and own for me? So that it all moves me towards where I want to be or where I say I want to be. And how am I going to make sure I'm in flow and maintain a level of awareness so if I need to pivot, I can. If I need to change, I can. And to give myself grace to do that. Because every day you live is a day that gives you more information. And that information may support or detract from your original plan. But if you're solid in why you're doing it, the how is flexible. If you're solid in the purpose, then the path is flexible. And you don't automatically get taken off your game because you had to take a right turn instead of a left. Because you know what the destination is. And you can see the connection through the flow. And sometimes the flow is not as clear, but it feels like good flow. And sometimes we just got to sit in that. Because clarity is not always immediate. Clarity takes some work. Clarity takes silence. Clarity takes a willingness to hear what's real and not just what you want to hear. So for 2021, y'all, it is really, for me, it is really about surrendering to the process. Surrendering to the flow, staying in flow, reclaiming what hustle means for me, and really helping all of you understand what hustle means for you, whether you're building a career or building a business. Because that hustle can kill you. That hustle can stress you out. if you are not aligned with that hustle, and that hustle is not aligned with what you want to do and who you are and how you show up. Because part of that hustle and part of how you show up is also owning what's real for you. Like, I still, to this day, I love physics. I am fascinated by physics. And because I'm a word person, the fact that it's centripetal force, centripetal, not centrifugal force, which is about centrifuge. It's centripetal force. I am fascinated by that, right? I know I'm weird, but you guys know that already. I love it. I love those things, and I love knowledge. But I'm also aware that physics was just not my strong suit, y'all. Just because I love it didn't mean I was good at it. Didn't mean I was good at it. And so that was not in my flow. I had to switch up my flow. And what I know now but didn't know then was sometimes you just got to go with the flow. I could not have planned going into accounting and then doing operations and doing a business and doing audit and being in professional services and then working in manufacturing and then being in HR. I couldn't have planned that. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I couldn't have planned my flow. But that flow gave me the data, knowledge, the actions, experience, and therefore the wisdom to be able to do what I'm doing now. Because I'm able to connect the data and the experience to give me wisdom to be able to impart that to other people, which I love doing. I love doing. I love being able to connect dots that other people can't connect, because it's easier for us to see in others what is very difficult for us to see for ourselves, right? It's hard for us to put up the mirror in front of ourselves. And so if there's a way to keep people from dying in the hustle, I'm all about that. I'm all about that. Because it's not, the beauty is not in the hustle, so to speak. There is beauty in the hustle, but the ultimate beauty is not in the hustle. The ultimate beauty is in the flow.
You know, when you talk about the hustle, and the hustle is so simple sometimes, because you and I were talking before this happened. I said, man, I had another flat on the way to work. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm so glad I paid AAA when I started not to. Like, do I need it? Right. And that was going in the flow.
Yes.
And so it was just a simple phone call, and I said, your dad's words keep coming back to me. Mm-hmm.
Proper prior planning prevents poor performance.
Okay. So while sometimes the hustle is out of desperation, because had I not paid them, and I told you I did not pay my Firestone card, and I don't like to keep bills high on my cards and stuff. I said, because back in the day, I would have had to, oh my God, I need an MC gig. I need to do this. And that would have put me in a hustle.
Yes.
Trying to cover something that if I planned properly, it could have saved all of that.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm telling you, planning is not easy and it's not always fun, but the impact is huge.
Yeah.
Because again, if you don't have time to do it right or plan it right the first time, what makes you think you'll have time to do it over? My dad told us that. I was like, oh, that's a good point. Who knew? You know, plan first, then execute. And that's not to say sometimes we need to just, we can't, you know, we don't have to just respond, because sometimes you do. Sometimes you just have to respond. It's in the moment, right? You just got to move. But hopefully you are aware enough and in flow enough that even if you have to just respond, you're at least aware enough that if something needs to be adjusted, you can still adjust.
Do you think that panic is a part of hustle sometimes?
I think panic is absolutely I think panic causes some hustle. I think panic causes the kind of hustle that is not necessarily in flow. Because panic causes hustle that is in the realm of either flight or pain avoidance, right? So it's fight or flight or freeze, right? Mm-hmm. So that panic can cause a hustle that may be related to fighting or fleeing, mm-hmm. which may be necessary. I mean, we are beings, right, who have that instinct to fight, flight, or freeze. And so we need to understand that. But are you hustling? And that's why I say it's important to understand why. Why are you hustling? Are you hustling because there's an immediate pain point that you need to address? That kind of hustle sometimes is necessary. You need to make that happen. But if that is continuing for days and days and weeks and months and years and decades, what's really going on? And what are you doing to address the root cause? Because if you're hustling like that and nothing's changing, you haven't addressed the root cause. You're just dealing with the symptoms. And that's often what happens when people find themselves in just continuously hustling and they don't feel like they're getting anywhere.
I told somebody yesterday, I'm not team no sleep. I sleep. I get my rest because a lot of times we adapt those comments as if that's a badge of honor.
Yes. It's not. I'm here to tell you, it is not. It is not. I do not recommend not sleeping on a Sunday for 5 years. That's not a good thing. It is not a badge of honor. In fact, it is an indicator that something is way off. And you owe it to yourself to fix it. I had to learn that the hard way, right? Because again, we get in our head and we're trained and we are taught what hustle means and what hard work means and what digging in means and all this kind of stuff. You just show up. I remember when I was young, it was like you had to be bleeding, bones poking out before you didn't go to school, right? I mean, it had to be serious. You had to be in the hospital. We are learning over time that sometimes the best thing you can do is stay home. Not only for yourself, but for others, especially in this pandemic, right? That's why you heard more and more over the last probably decade, maybe 15 years, more and more people talking about personal days, right? Mental health days. Sometimes you just need a minute. Sometimes you just need a minute. Sometimes it's for you and sometimes it's for the health and safety of others who come in contact with you. I'm just saying, right? Sometimes you just need a minute. And it's important for you, if you're in flow, that you understand when it's time to take a minute and just take that minute. Because if you don't take the minute when you need it, it turns into being forced to take a month. If you don't take downtime when you feel like you need to, you will be forced to. There's a meme that came out that talked about if you don't take the time to take care of your health will make you take time to take care of it, or something like that, right? In other words, if you're not taking care of you, an illness is going to happen that's going to force you to go down. So it's important. Yes, it's important to work. It's important to work for what you want. It's important to invest in what you want, because there is pride in that work, right? There is heart flow, and there is energy in having worked for something. I mean, it's just cool when you know you've worked really hard and you see the reward. That's awesome. And you need that, because that effort gives the outcome even more value, because you see the outcome of your hard work. It's when it crosses that line from hard work for a purpose into hard work because everybody else said so that it becomes a problem. When the kind of effort you put in becomes an area of judgment, that's when it becomes a problem. And I don't want you to go into 2021 all judgy. Especially don't judge yourself. Now, you need to be self-aware and you need to hold yourself accountable. But don't let other people's stuff judge you. Because we all got stuff. I got enough of my own. I can't own everybody else's. And you don't need to own everybody else's either. Own your own. Do the best you can with your own. Protect your spirit. Protect your psyche. Protect your hustle. Protect your side hustle. By being able to show up for the thing that is your investment, right? Your investor in your side hustle, you want to be able to show up for that. And if you're not taking care of you, that's going to make that very difficult.
Even when you getting those pictures done, that's protecting your investment.
Absolutely.
And your side hustle as well. And then I think about, I said the other day when I saw those pictures and I said, oh, you doing this for real? For real. And you said, I'm trying to keep up with you.
Yes.
That's good. I like that, because to me, that keeps the hustle away.
Yes.
That says, okay, we know we're both working on a purpose. We have something we've got to put out there,
right,
and something we must do.
Right.
So people need to, sometimes you need that accountability partner.
You do.
And it says, okay, hey, I need that too, because I am going to need that later on.
Absolutely.
Down the road. So.
And, and it's important. I mean, you need to have your village, y'all. You need to have, that's why I call it a village. You need to have your village. Because everybody in my village was like, we are so tired of looking at those same pictures. You have got to get some more pictures because you don't look like that anymore. Jerry said that too. Who is that? Right?
Yeah.
And I was so reluctant. You know, just like I said, social media, y'all, you know, having my face out there, that is a big deal for me. But here's the thing. I actually had a blast taking those pictures.
You did.
I did. And I love my pink boots, y'all. I'm trying to figure out how I can wear them every day.
Show them what you got on today.
I know. Yeah. Oh, I'm cute. I'm cute today. Got my little swing dress on and my boots. And my pearl mask, right? Y'all saw my pearl mask?
I'm like, girl, I ain't been
So, but here's the thing. It is, because I was staying in flow, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what it meant. And I knew for the purpose and for my why, it was just time to get over myself and go get some pictures. And that's why I did it. That's why I did it. I left. I just had to put my spirit aside that said, ooh.
If you would have did it before that, though, you wouldn't have been in flow.
I wouldn't have been ready. I wouldn't have been in flow. It would not, they would not have turned out the same way. None of that would have happened. Right? And this is what I talk about being in flow. I had been looking for pink shoes for months. I even found a pair and then I tried them, like, you know what? I'm just not going to get these. I'm not going to spend this money for something that just trying them on hurts my feet. That's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. And then literally I think the photo shoot was on a Thursday. And on Tuesday, I was like, I still don't have my shoes. What am I going to wear? You know. So I decided to go a couple more places. And there they were. And not only there they were, 62% off. Now that's what I'm talking about, right? But I wasn't forcing it. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I needed. I knew what I wanted to have be in flow. I knew how I wanted to show up. And I had finally reconciled myself to the fact that, no, you're just going to do this. And whatever, I literally said, if you can't find them, then you'll work something out. And as soon as I said that, I saw those pink boots. Because I wasn't forcing it. I was in flow. I was preparing to show up the best way I could show up, putting all my stuff together and just letting go of all the crazy. Now, don't get me wrong. As I was taking the pictures, that head trash was still there. Oh my gosh. What's hanging out? What's bulging? What's, you know, all this stuff. And yet, that's just my truth. I have come a long way.
You have.
A long way. Thank you. I've come a long way. And I'm going to own that. My girlfriend told me yesterday, I need you to stop saying you got more to get rid of. I just need you to stop it. I'm like, you know what? I received that. Because I have come a long way, and I'm going to sit in that. And all of you have too. We are in 2021, y'all. We made it.
You really have come a long way, even from just the first day you came here with Adrian to me. Weight-wise, mind-wise, comfortability-wise, a lot of things. So we do have to begin to pat ourselves on the back because sometimes you don't think or know for yourself. And when you said about thank God for your village and they were telling you to get good pictures and all of that, it's a good village too that's in your flow. They can see you make the progression and compliment you on that.
Yes.
And tell you, you go girl, you doing a doggone thing.
Exactly.
And that's a healthy village. So
absolutely. Absolutely. That village that will hold you accountable but also lift you up. Yeah. That's what a village means. And that's why I call it a village, not a tribe. I love tribe. I mean, tribe works for people. Village works for me because it takes a village. And Lord knows I need a village. So, I'm over again. Okay, y'all. Thank you, Leela. Who do we have on there?
And this on Facebook, we have Annette Phillips in New York. She says, hustle like a politician.
I love that, Annette.
That's we supposed to do that now? Okay, right. And Cynthia J. Hickman and the crew is on here today. And I love Cynthia J. because I saw her yesterday on her bicycle, too, getting her fresh air as well. We have Houston. We have Kansas City. We have Austin. We have San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, Orlando, Daytona. And Melbourne is new.
Oh, Melbourne, welcome.
Yeah, and we have Chicago, Philadelphia, Corpus Christi, Los Angeles. We have the UK, the Philippines, Germany, Cameroon, France, and then we have more in Cameroon tuned in on today. United Kingdom is as a set. So,
I love it. Thank you guys so much. Welcome to 2021. We are going to keep doing this. I'll keep showing up.
Michelle, I don't know why you can't get any sound. We're here.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
So, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I will be back next week. We're going to talk some more about hustle and grind and staying in flow. That's the whole thing this month, being in flow. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Love you too, Sweet Pea. Bye.
Hey, guys.